Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into an incredibly fascinating and honestly pretty chilling scenario. What if, out of nowhere, scientists made a shocking announcement that a global, planet-wide freeze was going to start in exactly 24 hours? I mean, would we survive? Would civilization as we know it just completely collapse? Well, we're going to break down the exact timeline, the science behind a massive planetary shift like this, and the desperate extreme measures we'd literally have to invent to keep the human race alive. So just put yourself in this scenario for a second. You wake up, and the very first thing you notice is this eerie, deafening silence outside. You look out your window, and absolutely everything is buried under a thick, suffocating blanket of snow. You run out to your car, turn the key, and nothing. Just that hollow click of a completely dead battery. The local power grid? Yeah, that's already failed because it was never built for sub-zero extremes like this. And the scariest part is that the temperature just keeps dropping, hour by hour, and frost is actually creeping along the inside of your bedroom windows. It sounds like the setup to a massive Hollywood blockbuster, right? But to figure out if we could actually survive this, we've got to understand the science of what an event like this really is. Okay, first things first, let's debunk a huge Hollywood myth right now. A real ice age isn't some magical instant overnight freeze that turns the whole globe into an ice cube in 3 seconds. Actually, it's a period where Earth's average temperature drops gradually over many, many years. It's this relentless, compounding drop in temps that slowly lets massive, continent-spanning ice sheets form. And whether it's triggered by a slight shift in Earth's orbit or some massive volcanic activity blocking out the sun, these growing ice sheets start reflecting sunlight back into space, which, ironically, just makes the planet even colder. It's a brutal, unstoppable feedback loop. But hey, to give us a little glimmer of hope, let's look back at history. The last ice age ended roughly 11,700 years ago. Back then, our ancestors were literally sharing the planet with woolly mammoths, giant sloths, and saber-toothed cats. And here is the truly wild part. Humans actually survived it. They made it through with nothing but animal skins, fire, and some very basic stone tools. But, our modern world is completely different from those nomadic hunters. Today, our everyday survival is rooted in one place, and we are entirely dependent on a super complex and surprisingly fragile energy and infrastructure grid. All right, let's look at part one, the freeze begins. Within just hours of this hypothetical freeze kicking off, we'd start seeing a massive domino effect of failures. First, you get heavy snow dumping on equatorial regions that literally don't own a single snowplow. By midday, transit just halts. Highways turn into lethal ice rinks, and every global flight gets permanently grounded. Fast forward to the evening, and the sheer physical weight of all that sudden ice starts dragging down high voltage lines. You'd see transformers exploding in these bright blue sparks across major cities as the grids freeze solid and snap. Society's normal rhythm violently interrupted. By the 24-hour mark, absolute panic sets in. News channels are running desperate nonstop coverage. Well, as long as their backup generators hold out anyway. Governments everywhere declare immediate national emergencies. Nobody knows how bad it's going to get, so millions of people rush the supermarkets in an absolute frenzy. And here's the thing most folks don't realize. Our modern, just-in-time supply chains, they only hold about 3 days' worth of food at any given time. So the second those delivery trucks stop moving on those frozen highways, cities begin to starve almost immediately. As we roll out of day one and into the first month, the cold simply doesn't quit. Every single week is colder than the last. Lakes and rivers freeze solid, which chokes off hydroelectric dams, all while everybody is cranking their home heating systems 24/7. This creates an unprecedented drain on the system, leading to catastrophic blackouts. And without power, the massive greenhouses fail. Countries that rely on warm weather agriculture watch their entire national crop yields wither and die. With global food production plummeting essentially to zero, the price of whatever food is left absolutely skyrockets. It's unaffordable overnight. So with the grid down and agriculture collapsing, humanity is forced into motion. We're not just going to sit around in the freezing dark, right? Imagine billions of people, maybe even you and your neighbors, packing up whatever you can physically carry and fleeing south. Highways get completely choked with abandoned, frozen cars, meaning families have to walk hundreds of miles toward the equator. National borders just dissolve under the sheer weight of these desperate crowds. We are talking about the instant trigger of one of the largest, most chaotic mass migrations in the history of our species. Moving on to part two, 1 year in the cold. After 365 days of relentless, punishing cold, the Earth becomes basically unrecognizable. Huge swaths of what used to be our most productive breadbaskets are now locked under feet of solid permafrost, totally dead. Wildlife is devastated too. Species that can't migrate fast enough just go extinct in a matter of months. Meanwhile, out on the oceans, the sea ice is aggressively expanding outward from the poles. Massive shipping straits that we rely on for international cargo get totally choked up with glaciers, which causes global trade to grind to a dramatic, devastating halt. And that expanding sea ice doesn't just block cargo ships. It fundamentally rewires the planet's entire climate plumbing. By altering those ancient, warm ocean currents like the Gulf Stream, global rainfall patterns completely shift. The world becomes incredibly polarized. Some regions lose all their moisture, turning into these desperately dry, freezing deserts where absolutely nothing can grow. On the flip side, other regions get trapped under perpetual atmospheric rivers, buried in nonstop blinding snowstorms that go on for months. By this point in the timeline, all those petty geopolitical squabbles, border disputes, and economic rivalries, they completely fade away. The existential threat is just way too large to ignore. Every nation on Earth has to drop its previous political agendas, pull whatever resources are left, and focus entirely on one single unifying goal: keeping the human race alive. Which brings us to part 3, how humanity fights back. Because let's be real, humans do not give up easily. To survive this, we'd have to completely re-engineer modern society from the ground up, basically embracing a subterranean lifestyle. Picture the constant low hum of massive indoor grow lights powering giant vertical farms, taking the place of those dead surface fields. We'd have to expand our subway systems into vast underground cities to stay protected from the lethal surface temperatures. And to power all of this, we'd rely heavily on deep Earth geothermal energy and rapidly construct new nuclear plants, generating both electricity and that vital, life-saving heat for our heavily insulated megastructures. In this bitter fight, technology absolutely becomes our greatest weapon against the cold. We couldn't just rely on brute human force anymore. We'd likely deploy massive, autonomous fleets of snow-clearing robots to constantly work the surface, just to keep our ventilation shafts and geothermal vents from icing over. And we'd lean heavily on advanced artificial intelligence. AI would run these hyper-complex weather models, because in this fragile new world, predicting a deadly storm isn't about knowing whether to bring an umbrella. It's literally the difference between a colony surviving or freezing to death overnight. Let's look at part 4, the final verdict. So, the big question: could humans actually survive this? The short answer is yes, but it requires a monumental shift in how we exist. The challenges are staggering. Billions of people would be permanently displaced. Coastal megacities would have to be completely abandoned to expanding ice shelves, and food would become the most strictly rationed, valuable commodity on Earth. It would demand unprecedented global cooperation. Yet, history shows we are incredibly stubborn. I mean, our ancestors survived the last great freeze, facing down apex predators with literally just animal skins and stone tools. Thanks to our modern technology, the indoor hydroponics, AI weather networks, vast nuclear grids, our chances of making it through the bottleneck are actually quite high. When our backs are against the wall, we're a brilliantly resourceful species. But make no mistake, the comfortable, easy world as we know it today, that would be completely gone, replaced forever by a harsh, strictly managed reality. Okay, but before you rush out to panic buy thermal underwear and winter coats, let's do a quick reality check. Scientists do not expect a sudden ice age to begin tomorrow. In fact, our actual, fragile planet is currently facing the exact opposite problem. The very real, immediate threat we are dealing with today is unprecedented global warming, melting ice caps, and rising sea levels, not a sudden global freeze. We just want to be clear about what the current scientific data shows. Still, exploring this whole hypothetical scenario is incredibly eye-opening, right? It really highlights both the terrifying power of our planet's climate and the stubborn resilience of human ingenuity. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Knowing everything we just covered about our fragile power grids, our delicate supply chains, and our cutting-edge tech, if the freeze actually started tomorrow, do you truly believe humanity has what it takes to survive?